early.
For real. All right, and what's up? Sugar. Oh, hey, Sugar Bear. Oh, Sugar Bear.
It's hilarious. There will be no Deadpool references, Dylan. Sorry. Oh, Sugar Bears. He's making it plural.
Oh,
that's
that's love. That's true love. I'm wondering if... Sorry.
Eli has me sat on a much lower stool, so I just want everybody to know I am not actually that much shorter than him. He also has me behind him if he were here, so I feel like there's a lot of like sexist kind of placement.
Wow!
I know that's controversial. I probably shouldn't say that.
Say that live on the internet. Hi, Yoki? Yoki? What does that mean?
I don't know. Is that like a Italian dish?
Yeah, maybe. Is anybody on YouTube yet? And if so, can you... Oh, I muted it. Oops. Can somebody jump on YouTube and just tell me if they can hear me okay? Sorry, test audience. Hi, Wade. Oh, I get it. He's quoting Deadpool. Oh, I forgot. Okay. Yeah.
Does he know what movie we're reviewing?
I think he knows. No one's on YouTube. Okay, well that's okay. We'll get this going. We have
people on Instagram, so let's get going.
Yeah. So today we are going to review Solo, a Star Wars story. Sorry guys, I know you're here too, but I'm gonna focus on the YouTube stream. But I love you guys anyway. So yeah, we're gonna review the Solo movie, the Solo standalone, the movie that I don't know if it should have existed, to be quite honest. I like it.
I thought it was alright.
But
let's be clear, I should start off, I am not like a Star Wars, I've watched the recent ones. That's all I've got for you.
Laura likes movies. Laura likes to be entertained. So.
I don't know who's in them. I just go.
Yeah. So for me, this is my opinion as someone who loves the Star Wars franchise, who's seen all the movies, who was a film student, studies film, cares about story and character development and all of those things. So you're going to get two very different opinions or I don't know, perspectives, I suppose, which is good. But yeah, it'll be interesting. So overall thoughts.
I thought it was a good movie. I thought that overall, I was able to watch it without knowing a lot about Star Wars. I don't even know where in the Star Wars line this is, and I thought it was okay. I get that it's early because
it's Han Solo.
It's Han Solo.
Young Han Solo. Yeah.
Therefore, I could put that together.
Well, and I think you hit on something important. Like when you do these spin-off movies and you do millions of sequels and things like that, it is important that you're able to make a good standalone movie that doesn't rely on the other films.
Right.
That if somebody wanted to just randomly watch this, that they could. And I think it just depends on the studios and the filmmakers if that's the world that they want to create, or if they want to create a world where, yeah, you need to, like Avengers Infinity War. It's not a movie I would recommend a new fan walking into not seeing any of the others. You kind of have to see
some, at least.
I would argue you have to see all of them because all of the character development, all of the setup, the setup with Thanos. So I think it just depends on kind of the movie itself and what you're trying to accomplish. The Solo, I keep wanting to call it Han Solo, but it's just called Solo, a Star Wars story. That movie does kind of need to be able to both stand on its own, but also kind of...
It's in the name.
What's that?
Stan Solo.
So yeah, Stan Solo. Okay. But also, you have so much rich Star Wars history that you do have to fit into this, because otherwise the fans are going to be super disappointed. And at the end of the day, why would you disappoint your fans who have poured so much money into this? So it's the Star Wars. Those guys do have to walk a very fine line. For me, I like it as a film, but it just, I just felt like, and I'm comparing it to Rogue One because up until now, Rogue One is the only movie like this that is a standalone, but it doesn't align with the prequels and sequels and all those things. It's kind of its own.
I liked that movie too.
Split off, yeah, and I good, and I really.
I'm not sure which one it was.
It was the one where they steal the Death Star plans.
Okay.
And that one was good, like despite the fact that it was splintering off and that was a new thing for the studios.
Dylan loves Rogue One. Caps lock.
Rogue One.
He's declaring it. You heard it here.
Rogue One is amazing. It is so good. The problem is that Solo doesn't reach that standard.
That's true. It doesn't.
You
now
know,
that I know what movie you're talking about.
And I do want to say something that Rogue One like completely achieves is that it sets up characters that you know are going to die.
Spoiler alert.
Best one out of the Disney franchise. This is true. Yeah, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Rogue One, sorry, it's a little late now, but it sets up these characters. You know they're gonna die, and I mean, even if you hadn't seen it, like you know going into it, they're all gonna die because if you know the timeline and what the movie's about, it's the people who stole the Death Star plans.
I didn't know, and I still knew they were all gonna die.
Yeah,
so.
they're gonna die. So you go into this movie knowing that everyone's gonna die, and yet they still found a way to get you to care about these characters who you'll never see again. And I think that's a huge achievement. That's a big thing to accomplish, and something that they didn't quite succeed in doing in Solo. And sorry, Dylan, and anyone who's watching this having not seen Solo. Yes, we're gonna.
I don't feel like there's a lot of build up in Solo.
There's not a lot of build up, but we're gonna spoil some things. We're gonna talk about deaths. Sorry, I have allergies, so if you see me wipe my nose, I apologize. It's a little gross. So it's interesting because there are some characters that you Dylan, don't leave me. There are characters that you know going into this movie. Okay, well, I don't see them later on, and they're never talked about in the later movies. Don't peace out. They're probably gonna die. You kind of know that going in, and some characters do, some characters don't. The problem is they failed to make me care. I really, really, really wanted to care about Woody Harrelson's character.
I hope Dylan's gone.
I really wanted to care about Woody Harrelson's character, and I couldn't because they just failed to get me to that point where
they didn't give you enough of him, period. And I think that was the problem. Like, you automatically like want to like him and care about him, but they just don't give you enough of him. I feel like we were robbed.
Absolutely. We were definitely robbed of his character. And Queen of Dragons, Emilia Clarke.
I was legitimately going to say Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah, Daenerys Targaryen. Another character who, honestly, I expected so much from her character and kind of felt like they were setting her up for something completely different. So much
more of her. It was like
I felt like they were setting her up for another movie that wasn't Solo.
I thought they were setting her up to die.
Okay, well, spoiler alert, she doesn't die.
Sorry.
So, but it was interesting because throughout the whole thing, I'm like, she's not part of this movie. Like, I felt like she was a part of a whole different movie that was happening behind the scenes of this one. It was really weird, and I liked it. I liked.
She was.
What's that?
You never knew where she was in the movie, like.
Right, you never knew where she was. There's a span of time that like happens to her, and she. Oh, he left again.
Really
everyone left. Okay, well, there's a span of time where she's gone, and you don't know where she is, and then they bring her back into the story, and you're like, okay, well, I don't know. It felt like they wanted you to question a lot about her, and I wasn't. That wasn't my concern. That wasn't a character who I was super invested in. I was more invested in Solo, in Lando, in Chewbacca. Those were the characters I was watching it for. So it was hard for me to invest heavily in these other characters that like I know aren't part of the continuity or the later continuity and don't really play a big part in the major trilogy. So I think with all that said, like I do like the movie. There were just things that I felt like, I don't know, they kind of squandered opportunity on. I think what they're trying to do is build a universe around these spin-off movies.
Yeah.
And kind of incorporate them and kind of shoehorn in stuff from the Clone Wars and Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, which are the two like animated series based on Star Wars. And I don't have time to invest in those. So that bothers me that they're trying to make those a part of this. And so then you have to know what's happening in those to know what's happening in the movies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that because there is a very significant thing that happens in Solo that I guess does relate a lot to those two things that I don't watch, that I don't pay attention to. So is there anything else you want to say about how you felt about the movie or any other thoughts?
Yeah, other thoughts. I thought it was really good, but I just feel like there was a really heavy, super heavy emphasis on Kira, which is Emilia Clarke's character. That's the first time we've mentioned her actual character's name.
Yeah, Kira.
Kira. And there was so much emphasis on her. Like you said, they never actually touched on, they just kept saying, you don't know what she's done or you don't know what I've done. And you're like, okay, like either you're going to tell me or you're not.
Right.
And so, spoiler alert, they don't tell you.
They don't tell you a whole lot about her.
But they just focused so much on her. And so it felt like there was this whole other storyline that you were like missing. Yeah. And there was so much more focus on her versus like Woody Harrelson, who actually had a huge piece in Solo's character development. You know what I mean? Like there could have been more there. Yeah. And that whole segment just fizzled so quick.
Yeah. It just... The problem with world building is if you get too wrapped up in that world building, you lose so much gold with everything else that you can achieve with it. And so some of the things I wanted to like really like talk about what I missed and what I wish they had done more of is setting up the relationship between Han and Chewbacca. Like that's honestly why I wanted to watch this movie. That's why I was like waiting for this movie to actually happen. Oh, that's we're nice. Adorable. Thank you, Carrie.
I don't have my glasses on. I think I can see that.
You know, so that relationship between Han and Chewie is honestly the reason why I want to watch it. And then knowing that Lando was going to be in it and talk about, they were going to kind of explore how Han gets the Millennium Falcon or how the Millennium Falcon even becomes introduced into Han's life. Like those two things were really exciting to me. And while they did happen, I honestly felt like those should have been the...
Because we were focusing on Kira the whole time.
Because we were focusing too much on the Queen of Dragons. And I love Emilia Clarke. I love Daenerys, and I really wanted to like this character, but honestly, I felt
there was a place for it. There was totally a place, but not as much emphasis. It was unbalanced.
Yeah, like, they were pulling our attention away from the thing that we should have been paying attention to onto her, and I felt like it was just unnecessary. It's there was a balance that they could have maintained, and they just didn't. It wasn't well balanced, and that's what it comes down to. So, I think.
It was easy watching, though.
It was easy watching. You didn't have to think too hard on it, and it was very like just like fun. And don't get me wrong, like there are parts where I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome. Like when there's a part in the film when Han gets like put into a pit. And there were two things. Like first thing I thought was like, oh, it's the Rancor from Return of the Jedi. He's gonna fight the Rancor.
I don't know what any of that is.
It's the giant monster.
I'm nodding, and I'm like, wait, I don't know why I'm nodding.
But then then you realize, oh no, this is Chewbacca. This is his first encounter with Chewbacca, and that was super exciting, and that made me really, really happy, because then it was like, oh wow, they're actually, because I believe that's kind of how they meet in the comic books, or not the comic, in the books. In the books, Han was part of the Imperial Army, and then or infantry, and then that's how he met Chewie, and so he rescued Chewie, and that's kind of how he like joins the rebellion, or not rebellion, but becomes a smuggler. So I liked that was included, and that was a big part of it, and that excited me. And you know, Han getting his gun, you know, his him seeing the Millennium Falcon for the first time, being introduced to Lando. Those were all things that made me so excited.
But they barely happened.
And that's as a film, like as a standalone film, you shouldn't rely on those. You shouldn't rely on those moments being like the gold of your film. So that's kind of my feeling on it. Is I loved all those moments, but it was just like I'm watching it going like, this shouldn't be the only reason why I want to watch this movie.
I was trying to think of why I wanted to watch it, because those were obviously none of my reasons.
I mean, for you, it's probably like, okay, this is Star Wars. I know Star Wars movies are entertaining. The new ones have all been really good.
They have been really good.
And
this one's been kind of the lamest one.
So the thing that I keep seeing, and I really agree with, is that that Solo kind of fails to prove why it exists. It is just there. And my thing with Rogue One, why Rogue One succeeded, is it like, even though everyone dies and the mission, you know, like only one part of the mission succeeds, you still get a sense of like, this movie exists for a reason. Like this is like, it needed to exist. We needed to. I
think there was a lot of build up too in Rogue One. Like there was a lot of build up, and I don't really feel like there was a lot of. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't feel like I was like on the edge of my seat with this one.
I think what Rogue One did a really good job of was that there were a lot of holes that were either left unexplained, or you just didn't necessarily care that there were holes in the like the prequels and the trilogy per se. But Rogue One made you go, oh, that's why this is that way, and why the whole story is the way it is, and why the Death Star had a weakness. Like that was, you know, the biggest criticism of the original trilogy was like, oh, why would you build a weakness into your greatest, you know, weapon? And that was always like kind of like this big trope that people would make fun of. And then Rogue One came along and said, well, they didn't build it, a spy built it. He was working for the Empire but wanted the Empire to fail, so he built a weakness. And that's why it was easily destroyed. Like completely fixes that like huge glaring problem that a lot of people had with the original trilogy. And not that was the only reason why this movie existed, but it did things like that kind of made you go, oh, okay. That's
Solo had a space monster.
Solo did have a space monster. It had a space Cthulhu. That was weird.
A black hole, right?
What?
I don't know.
Cthulhu?
Yeah.
No, it's H.P. Lovecraft. No, it's a whole different thing. Oh. Yeah, no, it's anyway. It had tentacles. It was weird. It was
really weird.
That was really, really odd.
That was the most suspense I felt in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
And it was, it was, and that was the thing. Like, so that was part of the Kessel Run. So that was another thing that I really enjoyed, was that the Kessel Run, which Han refers to in A New Hope. Like, that's a huge. Oh, Dylan's back. Hey, Bubba. You know, the Kessel Run like is something that Han like constantly refers to and talks about. You know, the Millennium Falcon did the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs, and you get to see that like. And that was what this movie, they should have called this movie The Kessel Run and made it all about that. And I think that's something that I really
is what it was all like focused around.
Yeah, it really was building the crew and making the Kessel Run happen. Why did the Kessel Run need to happen? What were the stakes? And I felt like that could have been more of the focus. This movie was a heist movie. Like, That was how it was advertised, and what people, the director said, like that, or the original director said, this was going to be a heist movie. I love heist movies. I did not get the sense that this was a traditional heist movie. You know what I mean? Like it was a Star Wars movie. It wasn't a heist movie.
And it wasn't fully a Star Wars movie either.
It wasn't. It didn't know what it wanted to be. Rogue One did not feel like a Star Wars movie. Yeah. Rogue One felt like a heist movie.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that was kind of
interesting.
Kind of where they didn't want this to feel too much like Rogue One, but Rogue One was awesome and it succeeded, and it did a really good heist in space.
That should have been the name.
Heist in space. Heist in space or The Castle Run. One of those two would have been a better title.
Notice, Dylan, that he's not giving you what you're going for. He's still pulling for his own title.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, Heist in Space is good, but I want it should have been called The Castle Run because that was the focus. That was what it needed. That's what would have made it better, honestly, is focusing on that heist and focusing on the mechanics of the heist. There was just so much character development. And don't get me wrong, I love character development, but
it was only with one person.
But it was frivolous character development, and it wasn't properly used. You could have thrown so much character development into a proper heist movie, and it would have been awesome. But they just really stumbled with that.
Being in the movie?
Say that again.
Can we talk about Vision being in the movie?
Paul Bettany, who plays the Vision in the Avengers movies, is in this movie, and Laura had a really hard time with it. I guess it's fair because Paul Bettany always sounds like Paul Bettany.
Done.
What? Paul Bettany?
Vision is in this movie.
Yeah.
He's not Vision.
No, he's
kind of a psycho.
He's a psycho. He's a villain, and my problem is
Vision crosses over.
I wanted him to be the villain, but there's another villain.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky.
Every time you think you're meeting the villain, there's another fucking villain.
Yeah.
And sorry, I cursed. I shouldn't have. But that to me is hard when you're like you're investing in this one villain, and then it turns out, oh no, there's another villain.
You have to feel bad for this villain because he's a worse villain, and
I wasn't feeling that, and then you're like, okay, well then this villain isn't really important. It just, I don't know. You're really you want the stakes to be high, no matter what in the film. The stakes have to be high for you to care about what's happening, like the heist. The stakes have to be high, and the villain has to be really like scary, like. Going back to
they did.
The Avengers.
I feel like they did an okay. I did say this to you. I feel like they did an okay job of Vision. What's his real name?
Paul Bettany.
No, but not. What's his name in the movie?
What is his name?
Oh God, we have no business reviewing a movie if we can't name the villain.
Well, but that just goes to show that like the villain wasn't that memorable either.
Oh my gosh! Please hold. Your call is important to us.
Paul Bettany.
Dryden Voss.
Dryden Voss. Yeah, I just gotta remember that.
Anyway, yeah. Oh shit! Yeah. What's happening? Did you ruin this?
No, I didn't ruin anything. Okay, here we go.
Anyway, so yeah, Dryden Voss. He's psycho. Dylan, he's psycho. Prepare yourself. But I feel like they did a great job in those scenes of really like giving you the energy of the room, of no one ever knowing where they stood. Like even Emilia Clarke's character, who's like his right hand man, she's clearly on edge.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, no one knows where they stand.
Well, she's not there. She's not there by choice. Like you find out she's kind of in debt to the guy that he works for. Right, but he thinks she's in debt to him. Right. And but the twist is it's really to the guy who he works for. But and you made a good point. Like those were some of the best
Happy
scenes.
Memorial Day, Dylan.
Too many spoilers. That is kind of the thing that you have that I really liked about those scenes is they were very high tension. And you were kind of scared. And that's, to me, that's a big a big plus for a movie is when you are a little scared of the villain. Like going back to the Avengers, anytime Thanos was on screen, I was scared. I was scared for what was going to happen to the characters and like what he was going to do next. He was a very well like mechanized character. They did a lot to build him up and then make him kind of frightening.
I think we disagree on that one because that's a different review.
That's a whole different review. But Paul Bettany, like you did fear what he could do next, and that, yeah, I agree with you on that. But it was few and far in between.
Yeah, there wasn't like enough of him to make you like invested in.
No.
In that, but.
So. Okay, so that was that. I mean, and again, like going back to like the idea that it's a heist movie, and it should have focused more on the mechanics of the heist and planning it and building the crew. Woody Harrelson, who is a new character in this film, and he plays. They basically kind of advertised him as like Han's mentor. He's the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Han Solo in like learning how to be a smuggler,
right?
And I really liked him, and I wanted to love him, and by the end of the movie, I didn't give a shit. Like I just wasn't that into him. Probably.
Well, they set you up to really like. Okay, so they set you up like, okay, this is where he becomes Han, because you're like, yes, he's gonna get into this life, and he's got this. What would you call him, smuggler, like guiding him and teaching him how to be cynical about life, etc. But then you don't get enough of him.
Yeah.
And then, they do make it to where it's just a very quick transition of now you don't like him. Right.
And spoiler alert, again, if Woody Harrelson's character, God, what is his character's name? Beckett. Sorry. I remember that. Beckett, he does turn at the end. And it's not a like, oh, he's been bad this whole time or anything like that. He's just Beckett.
He's just surviving. He's a survivor, and so he's just doing what he's got to do.
Yeah, that's just the nature of his character. And I think the point of Beckett is really just to show that, like, okay, Han saw who he could become and chose not to become that. Like, and there is a part in the film when kind of Han makes that that defining decision for himself and Chewbacca of who do we become? Like, do we become the guys who just do this for the paycheck, or do we do this for a cause? Do we do this for more than ourselves? Right. And by the end of the movie, like the whole heist ends up kind of not paying off, or maybe it does pay off a little bit. It pays off a little bit, but not in the way that they thought it would. So that they end up, again, spoilers. They end up deciding to help the rebellion. That's who
the pre-rebellion.
The pre-rebellion, because this is prior to the rebellion, and that is something that I did like about this. Is it kind of sets up other things like the rebellion and kind of that tension with the Empire. There's a lot of like talk of the Empire and how the crime, all the crime syndicates throughout the galaxy are kind of in like help the Empire, and they kind of work together. And it's really interesting, like kind of the politics behind it. And I'm such a nerd about politics. I even like it when politics are discussed in things like Star Wars or the Avengers or Justice League. Like it's so weird to me that I like that stuff, but I just do.
Weird to me too.
So, sorry, Crypto, I kicked you. So I think like that it all kind of comes as a surprise by the end of the movie that like, okay, Han chooses to be the good guy, even though he tells himself that the whole movie that he's a bad guy, that he won't ever let that go. Like he thinks he
tries so hard.
He wants to be the bad guy. He wants to be smarter, but deep down, he's such a good person that and you kind of see that follow him throughout the whole franchises. Okay, he thinks he's this like rough and tumble like pirate. But really, he's a sweet guy who does the right thing, and that's why he can never say no when...
You didn't mention him speaking Wookiee.
Okay, so I was gonna get to that. So anyway, Woody Harrelson, like, just... I
They didn't give you enough. I wish they gave us
yeah.
more. Now there's no going back.
Yeah, I liked him. Yeah, there's no going back. But I liked him up until I realized that we weren't going to get enough of him. So it was a little hard. Alden Ehrenreich, the most German name ever. I thought he did a good job.
I thought he did a good job too.
For a young Han Solo, you could definitely tell he did his homework. Early reports when the movie started filming, they were already reporting that he was going to hang out with Harrison Ford, and that Harrison Ford was kind of mentoring him through the role, which I think is funny because honestly, if you go back and watch the original trilogy, like Harrison Ford is not channeling anyone. He is not a method actor. He's just being Harrison Ford.
Well, maybe he just needed to figure out how to be Harrison.
And I think, and maybe that's what it is like Harrison Ford was like, well, kid, I
showed up and
I did things. You know,
looked good.
Yeah, like that was his thing. He was just smug and Harrison the whole time, which is totally fine. I just thought it was interesting that I was like, okay, he's giving him tips on how to be Han Solo. No, he's not. He's just saying just be Harrison Ford. So he did a really good job. And what I mentioned to Laura was that I liked that we got a lot of like old kind of like little moments where, okay, this is Harrison Ford's Han Solo, you know, coming through. But we were also seeing a young, optimistic, hopeful Han Solo.
Yeah.
Pre like bitterness, you know what I mean?
Right, where he still feels very like capable of overcoming all of his adversity.
Yep.
And he definitely like feels like no one's out to wrong him and that he can talk his way out of anything.
Right.
And he clearly can't.
Right. Totally.
Spoiler alert, he can't.
Yeah, no, he's totally full of himself. And he's still, I mean, obviously he still is full of himself, but I think, you know, you see that there's a lot of lessons learned
and then he gets to learn the lesson that there are some things he has a right to be full of himself for.
Right.
Like he talks a lot about being a pilot, but hasn't like flown.
Right. And then and then it turns out he's a great pilot.
Yeah.
You know, obviously does a great job like with that, but then learns that there's something he's not good at, like talking his way out of things.
Right.
Which is funny because he, you know, in the new one, not The Last Jedi, the one before that. Force Awakens. In The Force Awakens,
I don't know. I've seen all of them, I think.
Yeah, you have. In Force Awakens, Han says something along the lines of like, "Oh, I'll talk my way out of it," and Chewie responds, and Han's like, "I always do." You know, like that's kind of that. You see that all set up here in Solo, and it's really good. It's really fun. He is a very fun character to watch, and he's very charismatic, and he does a really good job. I don't think there's a moment where I didn't believe him as Han Solo.
No, he did a great job.
And what's kind of fun in this movie is that actually you find out why he's called Han Solo. Like Han has always been his name, but he wasn't always Han Solo because there's not a lot of last names in the Star Wars galaxy. So you find out why he has a last name. It's really cool. So yeah, I really liked him. I thought, as someone who I didn't know who this kid was coming into this, and I'd never heard of him, I thought he did a really good job, and I thought he channeled that cockiness, he channeled the smugness, but added in a little bit of his own kind of flair to it. Of okay, this is a character who once did have hope, once was optimistic, once was not so jaded by the world. And
it was all crushed.
Yeah, it was all crushed. So sorry, I gotta turn off my notifications because that's gonna get annoying. So
that's all I have to say.
Yeah, he was good. I liked him. I didn't put this in my notes, but his relationship with Chewie was wonderful.
They really, really wanted you to be invested in his relationship with Kira.
But I was more invested with him and Chewie.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people were. Like, they just couldn't. They were, like, forcing it. And I was like, I don't want to care about. Stop forcing this.
No, it needed to be about the bromance. I think right now in film, that's what more people are invested in, is the bromance between the two. Male characters, and not in a romantic way, but that's just like it's different. It
could have been romantic.
Could have been, but
there was a shower scene.
There was a shower. There is a funny shower scene, which is really funny because you're kind of like, what is like as it's happening, I'm definitely like doggy head tilting, like what is happening here? And then Han says, like, makes a joke like, we couldn't have done this separately, and she was just like,
yeah. Spoiler alert: it wasn't Kira and Han.
So then we out 1 of 10 is the highest. How good is the movie?
Ooh. An 8. I'd give it an 8.
I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a solid 7. It's good. And you kind of missed the beginning of this. It's there. It doesn't ever really justify its own existence. So while I really liked it, in some parts, there are some parts where I was just like, I'm not feeling it. So, but going back to like the Chewie thing, I think that should have been a huge focus. Yeah,
there was a little bit of potential. Like there were several missed potentials, and there are better. They've put out better.
They have put out better.
So it's not. I would say 8.
And there's a part in the film when they're it's part of the heist. You're welcome. There's a part of the heist that happens, and it actually gives like a really good opportunity for some Chewie development, and it wasn't touched enough. Like Chewie just goes off and does his own thing, and it kind of make you think like, oh, he might not come back, which he's going to come back.
Weird.
I didn't like that because honestly, what they should have done is followed Chewie. Like, okay, that's an opportunity to move away from the main narrative and go follow Chewie for a minute and learn more about Chewie and Kashyyyk and the Wookiees that he went off to go rescue. And then there's a moment where he says goodbye to them, and then it's over, and you're like, ugh.
That was weird.
It was just disappointing. Like, I didn't think it was weird. I just thought it was really disappointing because I wanted more of that. I wanted more about.
Well, especially after they had already touched a little bit on Chewie, saying like that he missed his family. Well, they said
he wanted to go. He wanted to go back.
And that they were enslaved, and like for him to just be like, "Deuces, I'm getting on this ship." Like,
well, and that's just it. Like they were trying to set up that Chewie was already so invested, like became invested in Han and this mission, and that he developed that relationship with Han that he can leave, but I felt like it wasn't enough. Like it happened so fast that it was like that should have been more of a crossroads. Like, okay, like we know that when these two characters come together, it's conditionally. Like they're conditionally coming together. And they did make that clear. But then, like,
because they said, like, once you're done, you can go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so they were talking about, like, we're going to split.
Right.
But then for him to, like, choose to.
Yeah. It was too sudden and it wasn't built up enough. So I would have liked more of that relationship built up. And then, speaking of, so then Donald Glover, because I have him next on my notes, is amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
I actually wish there was more of him in there too.
So that was my other problem with this movie is I'm coming into this film.
Probably every girl wishes there was.
Yeah.
Him.
Wow. My two big reasons for wanting to watch this film, for wanting this film to exist, was because I wanted to see the relationships that Han built with Chewie and with Lando and the Millennium Falcon, because we all know from Empire Strikes Back that that's who Han acquires the Millennium Falcon from.
You say we all know that.
You did know that. I had to explain that to you before we went and saw the movie, so you understood that dynamic. But that's a big part of Han's character is the Millennium Falcon, and therefore Lando Calrissian. And I just felt like, they did a really good job at setting up the tension between the two characters, and that they're not best buddies, but they're old buddies.
Right.
And that's something that they say in Empire Strikes Back is Han old buddy. It's a not like a super comfortable relationship, but they're buddies. They've known each other a long time. They've been through some things together. And they did establish that in this. That was something that they successfully did, was they established that there was kind of this like tension-filled relationship. I just wanted more of him. I wanted him to be I wanted him to be a much bigger part of the heist, of the story. He was there, he had his own kind of things, and that was another thing that they did a really good job, because in Empire Strikes Back, you get the feeling, this kind of awkward feeling that he has his own agenda throughout the whole thing. And he does, like he's helping Vader in Empire. He's helping Vader throughout the whole movie, but it's against his own will. So again, he's kind of the same type of character as Han, where like he's a bad guy. He's a
I feel like
ruffian,
in this movie, you don't get, you get more maybe the ruffian. You don't get that he's a bad guy. He's clearly there because well, actually, it's really strange. They don't really explain it. It seems like he has a thing with Kira, but again, going back to you don't know her past,
right?
Like, so you don't know why he like owes her this favor or whatever it is. They imply that there's some kind of like favor owed to her, but then he has this love affair with this robot. So it's not that he's interested in Kira, which is what it makes it seem like. So then it's like, okay, well, what's the favor owed? That there must be some. I don't know. They don't explain that very well.
No.
They say how much they like really focus on her, but they focus on her with Han. They don't focus on her with Lando. So it's weird.
It is weird. And speaking of the robot thing, so they established that Lando is pansexual, right?
Yes,
that's what that term is.
Yeah. I guess that would be,
which is totally fine. Like I actually and he actually explained it in an interview. He's like, well, how can Lando not be pansexual in space? Like, okay, yeah, it totally makes sense. Like you're gonna have a romantic relationship with basically whatever you feel like you can connect with, especially in space.
And the robot lets us know that it's possible.
Yeah, the robot definitely makes it a little awkward a few times, but it was good. I was invested in that relationship between him and the robot.
But it was short too.
It was short. It was spoiler: the robot dies. But what they did a really good job is that they incorporated that into the relationship with the Millennium Falcon, because we already know that the Millennium Falcon is this amazing ship that has so many great qualities. It has the best navigation system in the world. Well, it's because of that robot.
Galaxy, best navigation in the galaxy.
Sorry, what did I say?
World.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Best navigation in the galaxy. So it's because of that robot. That robot had the best navigation in the galaxy, and then because of events in the movie, they had to transfer that into the Millennium Falcon. So that was kind of cool. Like those little things that that built into the greater world, I really appreciate those moments. And something that I was expecting was some kind of reference to Lobot. And Lobot is Lando's kind of like manservant cyborg in Empire Strikes Back. He's like this bald dude, and he has this like weird kind of like robot cyborg thing,
like on Star Trek,
on his head, kinda, but not quite.
But on the back,
instead of the front. It's really, really weird. But he's called Lobot. Anytime people would wear the Bluetooths, when Bluetooths were a thing, I would always call them Lobot because it reminds me of him. And I thought maybe the robot or the droid would have some kind of like reference or relationship to that character, but then it was kind of weird than that he actually had a sexual relationship with the droid. So
it was like making a love video or something, wasn't he?
No, he had his little journal, the Lando Chronicles, and I want to see the Lando Chronicles. That was awesome. There's a part when he's just by himself in the Millennium Falcon, and he's doing like a little hologram thing. He's just telling the tales. Yeah, he's telling the tales of Lando Calrissian in this epic way, and it's hilarious. And I want more. I wanted more of that. But overall, Donald Glover absolutely.
It was great. His character was great. It was fantastic.
Only thing that I was missing was a musical break where it's "This Is America." That would have been amazing. Romance and stuff. I only want to briefly touch this because I want to keep this video fairly short. What's that?
That's what that says.
Romance and stuff.
Rampage.
No, does not say rampage. Romance and stuff. Kira, the Emilia Clarke's character. It just could have been good. Could have built something kind of short and sweet with it. And they could have easily set that character up for other movies regardless, but I just felt like they put too much into it. And this will lead into the big twist. There is a big twist towards the end of this movie. So basically what you need to know, and we've made this video more for the people who've watched the movie so that we don't have to set everything up. But the big thing that they set up is that they're doing this job. Woody Harrelson was doing this job for
well, he was doing it to retire. To
retire, but before Vision for that character.
Dryden Voss.
Dryden Voss. He's doing it for him, and Dryden Voss is doing it for
Crimson something.
Crimson Syndicate?
No, it's not Syndicate. That's a weird name. Watch, you'll be right. It's not on.
It's Crimson
Dawn.
Crimson Dawn. Crimson Dawn.
There you go.
And so Crimson Dawn is like this crime syndicate, and you're but also kind of a person, and you're like, who is Crimson Dawn? What's the significance of this character? Dryden has these scars.
Weird scars, and they get really red when he's really mad.
Yeah, so
kind of weird.
So they're interesting, and he's scared of Crimson Dawn for some reason. So you know that's a significant character. That's going to be someone who we want to see. And
that's where you lose the investment, right? Like in him as a villain,
right? Because
you're like, wait, he's scared of somebody? Like he's psycho. Why is he scared of someone?
Exactly. So that's kind of my thing. Is like when you know that there's a villain above the villain, you're like, oh, okay, like. It's the same problem that the Avengers movies have, is that when you find out Thanos is like the one behind it, so all the villains that were kind
of
under him, you're like, oh, I don't care, like that character means nothing to me. So it's just kind of the same problem here. But what you end up finding out is that Kira, she got off of the crappy planet. Because she did some things.
No one knows what.
And she did something for, you assume, Dryden Voss, but then it turns out that no, it was for Crimson Dawn. Crimson Dawn is the one who she's in debt to. And it turns out that is Darth Maul from Phantom Menace. And if you're unfamiliar with that character, he is the guy with the double-bladed lightsaber. He's the Sith that goes after... Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi, with orders from Darth Sidious. So he's like the first Sith apprentice that we're introduced to in the prequels, and he dies at the end of that movie. He's cut in half, which apparently is all explained magically in the Clone Wars and then Star Wars Rebels, which is totally fine by me. I love when they make canon out of all these other things. That's totally great. But just kind of felt like, I don't know.
I just recognized him as a red guy that I've seen on things. I don't know the story.
It was just hard.
But she just it's like Kira, I don't know. Then she just leaves, and it's just weird.
Yeah, so he basically summons her to go to him, and that's kind of the
But she knew that was going to be the situation, right? So I feel like you realize at the end of the movie that I feel like she was just playing so many people to essentially, then it becomes more like her whose movie is this?
Right. Yeah. No, and that was the big thing, is we're following her so much. It wasn't so much Han's story anymore. It was hers.
Yeah. That you don't get to know. You don't get to know any of it.
Well, and so clearly they're setting that up for something, and I don't know if that's going to be part of. So, some of the movies that have been announced recently is that they're doing an Obi-Wan Kenobi spinoff. They're doing a Boba Fett spinoff. That's already been.
I can't see this far. Is that Jake?
It is Jake. Hey, buddy.
You're at the very end, so I hope you've seen the Star Wars movie, or you're gonna have it ruined for you.
No Jabba the Hutt spinoff. Oh, hey, Aldo. No, I hope there is no Jabba the Hutt spinoff, but that would basically be the Boba Fett spinoff.
Oh, that's nice. I was being nice to you. But, okay.
Wow, Jake, jeez, this is a kid show. So I think the Boba Fett spinoff will. So at the end of Solo, he says to Chewie that they're going to go to Tatooine because there's a gang being put together on Tatooine. So that to me makes sense that that's where Boba Fett is going to pick up because he's such a big part of that of Han's character in Return of the Jedi and Empire. So that will be interesting if those all kind of connect and they find a way to bring Kira's story involved, kind of like wrapped up with that. I don't know. I don't know if they would bring Kira back. I feel like they would.
Well, so if this is all before, or am I jumping too far with timeline stuff? Isn't that next? We've already on your list.
What? No, you're good.
Okay.
Go for it.
But wouldn't she then be a character later down the road? Because remember, I haven't seen anyone. But
well, no,
Jake, it is referred to as a spoiler alert. I told you, you came in at the end.
Yeah, this is all spoiler alert. So if you haven't watched Solo,
just sign off now. Call it a day. Go barbecue something.
So, I think what they're setting up is that her story is going to conclude before the events of A New Hope and all that. So
there has to be another one to like make sense of Crimson
Dawn and all of that. So it's going to be interesting how they fit all that together. I mean, obviously they're building a timeline in between all the movies for us to kind of watch and see develop and see how the Empire and the Rebellion and all that are affected kind of in this in between time span. We saw in the trilogy the beginning of the Empire, and then the prequel trilogy the beginning of the Empire, and then the original trilogy the end of the Empire.
So Royal Week, because I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah. So now it's time. Now they have the opportunity to show all the in between stuff, the Clone Wars, the Rebellion, all that stuff. So it's it'll be interesting to kind of see what their plans are with her character and Crimson Dawn and how that ties all into all of it. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I felt like they were trying too hard to build that all up, and I just wanted to see a friggin' Solo prequel. You just wanted to see a bromance between Chewie and Solo. And Lando. Because honestly, that was a little weird to me too. Is that like Lando and Chewie seem to have kind of a buddy relationship in Empire, but you never see that kind of. Chewie's been around for 190 years. You probably already knew him. They're probably old buddies. So that it was just interesting. Like and speaking of like the timelines, it's a little weird that they don't flat out say when this is happening. Like you assume this is pre-Rogue One, but it doesn't definitively say. It doesn't definitively. Like it's supposed to be the beginning of the rebellion, I believe. So it's a little interesting. So and then as far as like fan service, there's a ton of fan service. There's so much like little nods to things that happen in the original trilogy that you're like, yeah, this is awesome. But again, that shouldn't have been the sole purpose of the movie. So that was a little hard. But you see Han get his first gun. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Do you both think that these Star Wars movies should be more spaced apart? Next movie, Episode 9, comes out 2019. No, I don't know. I didn't realize how many movies, although were like coming out so quickly. I was like, oh, I don't think I've seen these. And Eli's like, yeah, you did. I'm like, what? So. It's a Star Wars movie a year. And I don't think they need to be. I think if it meant but that this is in less than a year, so all those right because the other one it's like usually around Christmas, right? No, so now don't ask me anything. So now the next one won't come out until summer of 2019. Oh. Yeah. Well, isn't that what he's saying? Or is Right. So it will be a full year though.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I don't know. I think if it means that they'll be better planned and like better.
This was not their best one.
This was not their best one, but I also think that they had some turbulence with the directors, like the original directors left mid-production.
That's weird.
And then
Why?
Ron Howard came in. I think it was a lot of disagreements with Disney.
Oh.
Which, I mean, makes sense. So
yeah, I'm with you, Aldo.
5 months before Solo seemed too soon. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that was the reason why it wasn't that good. I
just don't get why they're jumping all around in the timeline. It's weird. If you didn't watch, I don't watch these. I mean, I do watch these now, so now it's getting really weird and confusing for me because I didn't watch all the other things.
I'll say this. I feel like Rogue One actually did a good job at, I don't want to say answering questions or being a part of Force Awakens or Last Jedi, but I felt like they tied well together, even though it was different timelines.
Oh, Sarah said hi.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Hello. So formal. What was I saying?
We're talking about the movies and their timeline jumpingness.
The timeline, yeah. There's still themes that are kind of tied to it all. And to me, it makes sense. To me, it works. Like, what I really liked about Rogue One is that there's a part where they're like going through the archives and they're looking out like projects from the Empire projects or whatever. And one of them is actually a way to cloak themselves in was it cloak themselves? There's something that they briefly hint at in Rogue One that they actually do in The Last Jedi, and so it kind of explains little things here and there. So I mean, they found a way to tie things together with those movies, and I felt like that's what they're trying to do with Solo. Is they're trying to set up more things that will be explained probably in Episode 9. That's all I can, and then like the dice, they made a big deal out of the dice in The Last Jedi, which I didn't even know was a thing like that. And I am a pretty big Star Wars nerd. Like, I didn't know those were an actual thing. So it is what it is. We're going to lose Instagram in about a minute. So if you want to see us wrap this up, head over to YouTube, link in my bio, on Elijah Wilbur video. So thanks, Instagram. Thanks for everyone for watching. I don't think there's anyone still watching, but yeah. Bye. End live video. So anyway, I think that they're trying to shoehorn things and.
Did you want it shared?
Oh, share your video for the next 24 hours. Yes. I definitely think that there are things that like they're trying to set up, and it all comes back to world building. Like right now, that's a new thing for studios. Marvel's right now like doing a really good job with it, and everyone's trying to get it right. So,
how's DC doing with it? That one was for Aldo.
Anyway, so we're about to hit that hour mark. We've been doing this for an hour, so I want to wrap it up. But I just overall. Your feelings, your thoughts? I
liked it. And again, I don't watch... That's not true. I have only started watching the Star Wars movies in the last... that looks like Jabba the Hutt. Anyway, I've only started watching the Star Wars movies in the last few years. And I am really enjoying them. I think that this one was good. I just don't think it was at the caliber of the other ones. Yeah. But it was good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
It wasn't bad.
I hope that they do more. I do like this guy.
I hope they do a sequel to this movie. Yeah. I
would be down for that.
I hope they do another Solo.
Specifically with more Lando.
More Lando, more Han, more Chewie. Focus on those characters. And if they're going to be a part of the Boba Fett storyline, then it's Boba Fett is your main character, and these guys are your secondary kind of you're following them secondarily, but Boba Fett needs to be the main character. So I hope they get it right. Boba Fett's the bounty hunter, anyway.
That you told me about.
Yeah. So I hope they get it right. I hope that that they learn from the mistakes of this one. And I'm excited to see what they do with Crimson Dawn. I'm excited to see what they do with Darth Maul. That will be really cool. But it's right now, like I felt like it was shoehorned, so it was weird. But
yeah.
But anyway, so that's it. That's the review. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. If anyone watched this, or you know, it'll be played back on my channel. It'll be a regular video that people can watch and see. Let me know if you guys like the live stream, if you want to see more of it. I kind of picked a really bad day to do this. This is Memorial Day weekend. Like, probably people are out barbecuing and enjoying their day off. They're not going to...
We should barbecue.
We should barbecue. That's what we're going to go do after this. So if you like this, if you're only catching this after the fact, like, let me know if you think I should do more live streams. It's easier for me, honestly, because then I don't have to edit it. So that's kind of awesome. But otherwise... share your thoughts, feelings. What did you think of Solo, a Star Wars story? Are you excited for the things that they set up? Like, do you have different feelings than me on this? I feel like maybe I might be the loner here, but share your thoughts, all that. Until next time, I'm Eli Wilbur.
I'm Laura Walshaw.
Be sure to like this video if you did like it. Subscribe, hit that bell, and get notifications next time I post something. And we'll see you later. Bye. So weird, like, ending a live stream. It just doesn't feel over, you know?